Hey visibility hackers, in this video we're talking about gamification. Hey, if you're new here, hi, I'm Coach Molly from the visibility hacking team, and we help small businesses grow their visibility online with the best kind of content. We don't play the content for the sake of content game. No, we play the content for connection game. We believe in conversions, increasing conversions for our small business partners, and that's what we're going to share with you today. We're specifically talking about gamification. We've talked about gamification in different ways before. You can check out videos. I'll link them above. There'll be one about gamification in your presentations, and there'll be one about gamification in your sales and your website. So check out those videos linked above. Today's video is more of a general overview so that you can contextualize those videos and kind of make a series that wasn't released in a series. Let's start with the basics. What is gamification? Gamification is using game type mechanics in non-game environments. So those are things like prizes, badges, scores, leaderboards, progress charts, those kinds of things that you see in video games and board games and games in general that really keep people engaged and in tune with what it is you're talking about. So we as small businesses use gamification. As I mentioned, that we have another video above, but we can use that in our designs for our web pages. We can use gamification in our programs and in our course designs. We can use gamification in our presentations and our webinars. Gamification is really a cutting edge tool, and I come at the world of gamification not from the game design side, but from the education side. We've been using, in the world of instructional design, we've been using gamification for years, and it's really wonderful to see these skills translate over into the small business and entrepreneurial space. So if you want to hear more about this, then stay tuned. In this video, we're going to talk about the powerful emotional hook that keeps them learning. We'll talk about how to move forward in the right direction. And at the end of the video, we'll talk about the essentials of gamification. For this and more, stay tuned. Roll the intro. What really hooked me with gamification is when I was studying the psychology of it, like literally what was happening in our brains. If you know my story, I used to put people into MRI scanners and show them different pictures and videos and read them different stories and see what was actually firing up in their brains. How were they reacting to these different messages? And when we put people through gamified processes, ways that they were able to learn and uncover, they were rewarded for their advancement, for example, we were able to see so much more lighting up in people's brains. They were much more motivated, and they were motivated intrinsically just as much as they were extrinsically. And this is not just because our brains are firing up, but it's because we've actually tapped into an emotional state with our participants, which is really neat. Because we know when we go see professional sports, for example, we don't see people in an emotionless state. When there's a game involved, when there are stakes, when there are points to be earned, when there is competition to be had, there is emotion involved in that process. And when we as business owners and entrepreneurs and course creators and teachers are able to tap into this, we're able to use that as a pathway to the emotional pull and the emotional motivators for our people, which is great. So I just mentioned two things that might have confused you, so I'm going to explain them. I mentioned intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. This is important because this is the emotional pull that actually happens. So when we have, let's say, a competition in front of us, let's simplify gamification to just there's a competition between teams. When we have that, we have the extrinsic motivator of we need to win. Winners get a prize. There is a carrot dangled in front of us and we want that carrot. That's an extrinsic, outside of us motivator. On the other hand, we have intrinsic motivator. I remember this by the first two letters are IN, which spells in, meaning inside of, coming from within. Intrinsic motivators are things like feeling like we're part of a team. That feeling of being part of a champion team, that's an intrinsic motivator. So it's not necessarily the carrot, it's more of that emotional, warm, fuzzy feeling that we get. So we can actually tap into both of those and drive them, turn them up to 11 to get our participants motivated. It gets them hooked and it keeps them going. Simple way to get yourself hooked in the visibility hacking world is to hit the subscribe button, get new videos delivered straight to you when they are hot off the press. Gamification is not only effective in the way that it motivates our people, but it also helps them stay on track. And we mentioned this in our other gamification videos where we talk about how we have a process and a flow for our people to follow. Similar to playing a board game, you have a process and a flow to follow. Maybe it's like snakes and ladders where you have diversions in that path for each person, but you have a map that everyone is able to follow. And if you want your students, for example, to make it all the way through your course and you want to reduce that drop-off rate, well, a great way to do that is to gamify the process and incentivize the finishing of that map. Now, how do we keep everyone involved? Well, if you have the ability to put people into teams, you're going to see a drastic increase in that level of motivation. And this is because we feel emotionally and psychologically when we are put into a group, we feel like we're letting our group down if we don't show up, if we don't participate. If you're able to get that group together and get them to meet each other at least once, you will see that reduction in drop-off because they will be accountable to each other. Then the next level can happen where you have that team cohesion starting because they're seeing themselves as separate from the other teams. They become a cohesive unit working against others so that they can be better and we have that healthy competition. In essence, when we have mutually shared goals, either between individual team units within your larger program, or if we have one larger team, or cohorts as we call them in the visibility hacking world, when you have cohorts going through, those cohorts have mutually shared goals throughout your program, but then you'll also see them motivating each other afterwards. But that's a topic for another day. So let's take an action step. I want you guys to start thinking about what those mutually shared goals are within your programs and within the services that you're providing for your people. Maybe this is even your mutually shared goal for people who are showing up to your live shows. Once you think of what that is specific to what it is that you sell, whether it's your product or your service or an info product or you're an affiliate marketer for someone, what I want you to do is down in the comments, let us know about what are those mutually shared goals within your program. I'd love to get to know them. All right, we've covered the foundations. Now let's talk about making this actually work. How can we implement gamification techniques? What are those techniques? So first we're going to talk about mechanics, the mechanics of games. This at its absolute simplest form can be broken down into rewards and rules. So first, what are the rules for your gamified process? Let's call your gamified process a challenge. So what are the rules for your challenge? Right now, we're working together with a group of awesome visibility hackers who have a very specific challenge in mind. The rules for our challenge are that you have to post an intentional piece of content every single day for an entire month. Second rule is that you have to tag the other people in the group. And the third rule is that you have to follow up with the post that you were tagged in. So there's 3 very simple rules to follow for this gamified process, but the heaviest weighting is on that first rule, where we have to make sure that we're completing that task. That is the ultimate reward at the end of the road, at the end of this challenge, right? We want consistency, and we're going to get consistency by doing these tasks within the challenge. Now, the second thing is the rewards. What are the rewards? We have rewards that are internal to your program, and we have rewards that are external. So I'm not going to say intrinsic and extrinsic because those mean different things. So internal to your program, rewards are things that you're actually giving your people. You can have badges, you can have certificates, you can have graduation ceremonies, you can have shout outs, you can have private trainings or private Zoom calls that they're welcome to. You can have statues and trophies and plaques and big fancy extravagant vacations for everyone to go to. Whatever it is, those are things that your business is going to be providing to your participants. On the other hand, there are rewards that are going to be external to whatever your challenge is as well. Making sure that you have note of that and that you can communicate that to your participants is essential. So those would be things like, in our challenge where we're posting consistently, we talk about that consistency, that habit of consistency being something that's really important, and that's a reward unto itself. We also talk about the engagement and the connection to our own audiences that we generate from creating that consistent content. That in and of itself is another reward. When you put our process in place, you are also given systems and processes that work at a deeper level, connecting you to your ideal customers who are coming in through your pieces of content, so you can work them up to being paying customers. All of that kind of stuff is rewards that actually come external. Those are rewards that come on the backs of the efforts that your people are putting in. They're not just doing the baseline in order to pass, they're actually being pushed to put their best work in. They're not just working towards a certificate at the end of the program, kind of like when we were in high school, you'd kind of just work for the exam. Instead, you're actually working for your own success. When we have that on the line, now we're seeing a completely different level of engagement. Now, quickly, 3 different ways of adding gamification in. These would be what we call dynamics, gamification dynamics. First one is to have, as we've already mentioned, leaderboards. This is where people can actually see who's ahead of them. They can see how far apart they are. They can see themselves moving up that leaderboard. That's really exciting for the people who are on the leaderboard and the people who are trying to get on the leaderboard. The second one is looking for any opportunity that you can have team collaboration, where you have mini teams. Maybe each week of your challenge, you switch people up into different teams, or they work in those same groups throughout the entirety of your challenge. Whatever it is, having opportunities where people are cross-communicating is going to see yet another deeper level of connection. And a third technique that you guys can use, of course, is adding in badges and point systems. These I love to do. I love giving out badges, and I love to reward my students at the end with an awesome graduation ceremony. So I hope those were interesting for you. And if you are looking at building those deeper connections, using more gamification in your programs, in the content that you're creating, so that you stop playing the game of content for the sake of content and you start playing the game of connection and having those genuine connections to your customers, well, then I invite you to come join us over in the visibility hacking world, visibilityhacking.com. And there's a button at the top of that page that says Become a Visibility Hacker. That'll pop you over into our awesome Facebook group. I will see you over there. I cannot wait to get to know you. Definitely introduce yourself when you join us in the group. I'd love to see it. Until I see you again, remember, I love you, be excellent to each other, and just go live, because your people are waiting for you.